Okay,
Thank,
here we
thank you
are.
very much for joining us at Job Seeker Nation. My name is Mark, and along with my co-host Jack Kelly, who is the founder of Recruiter, Compliance Recruiter, and also senior careers contributor for Forbes. How are you, Jack?
Good. I'm doing very well.
Good
Excited,
to hear.
excited for today. A lot of good stuff to talk about.
Absolutely, and I'm
And we have an
even more
awesome
excited.
guest.
Yes, our awesome guest, my
Our
longtime friend
we're
Daisy
international
Wright.
now. We're
Oh,
international.
Yes, I
We have
know.
people from
absolutely.
all over the world.
Yes, we're doing this all over. So I'd like for you guys in the chat say hi and let us know where you're from, and also be sure to participate in our discussion. We've got a few hot topics today, and we plan to give our best advice for you. So if you have any questions regarding your job search, feel free to put that also in the chat because that's really the reason why we're here. Not just so you can just hear us talk ad nauseum, though sometimes that happens. But we want to be sure that we are giving you our best career advice. So feel free to put that in the chat, your concerns, anything you could think of, and also feel free to participate in our discussion. We've got a few things to get off of our minds. Well, not really. We just got a few questions to answer. So we're hoping that this will meet your needs as we begin to talk about how job search and competitive job market, and we want to also hear some of your challenges. So here we go. There is a lot of activity going on online. People are more online than they ever had before. And of course, we are ones that are kind of hang out here, even in our spare time. We kind of look to see what's going on. And so are a lot of people. But for a lot of people, the web and what we do are tools in the tool belt. So, um, whatever you do online, whether it's casual, whether it's business, if it's not good, it's going to stand out. But there's all kinds of things in the news about what people are generally doing online. We can we don't have to get into the real deep stuff, but generally, what are some of the things that are keeping, not necessarily the things that are disqualifying them from getting noticed by employers, recruiters, or people who might want to refer, but what are some things that people may not be doing, or yeah, they're not doing to get noticed by employers? And Jack, I want to start off with you this week.
So, so your question is what to do or not to do online to get noticed,
Yeah.
or get
Oh,
noticed in a
what
positive
aren't
way
they
and maybe
doing?
not
Yeah.
a negative way.
Right. What aren't they doing? What do you know? Says that guy only did that one thing. He would probably get noticed by somebody like me.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge I notice with people is that they they're not championing their own cause. And what I mean by that
Hmm.
is, you would think that if you're actively looking, or let's say you're in between roles, you want to be on LinkedIn, or to be fair, there might be other platforms that make sense given what you do for a profession, um, and make yourself known. You want to kind of have your brand out there so people see who you are, what you're about, the value you have to offer. And I see, unfortunately, the opposite, where people pull back and they're not there. They're not, telling their story. They're not letting recruiters or hiring managers or HR know, hey, I'm in the market. I'm looking. Here's the kind of job I want. And it's surprising and disappointing because at the very time they have to advocate for themselves, they're not. And we're not in a world, and this could sound harsh, but we're not in a world where someone's going to knock on your door and say, hey, Daisy, we have a job for you. Could it happen? Maybe, yeah.
Mhm.
But the odds against somebody just randomly saying, okay, I'm gonna hit you up with here's a job order. Did you notice that too, Daisy? Have you seen that?
Oh, absolutely. And I say all the time, no, but the job is not going to fall into your lap. You have to actively go out there and look for that job. And one of the places that I would speak to is LinkedIn, because recruiters and hiring managers and everybody is on LinkedIn. And one of the things I've noticed, even though we have preached this all the time, is people coming on with incomplete profiles. And I tell people all the time that LinkedIn is referred to as your resume on steroids. It's there 24/7, 365 days a year. And you have to make sure that it's fully completed or near as completed as possible. Because if you're, and as Jack alluded to, if you don't have, say, a brand statement in the headline that speaks directly to the value you could bring, you're going to be bypassed by recruiters. The other piece is that the about section, LinkedIn allows us uh, 2,000 character spaces. Fill that in with value statements. What is it that you have done? What is it that differentiates you from everybody else? Because once people start reading that part of it, then they will be forced to continue reading the rest of your profile. So that's number two. And the third piece is when you're on LinkedIn, not only like a post, but comment on it. Offer your perspective because your perspective might be something that a recruiter or a hiring manager might be looking at, and he or she might say, wow, that's a great point. Let me reach out to that person.
Yeah, I really think that all of what you guys said are important. I think even just to bring it all together, it's a narrow focus. A lot of people come and they tend to they tip the toe in the waters for a long time. Some people for a couple of years before they actually get what they really came for, or really to try to be noticed. And really, LinkedIn is now the platform you come on and you engage. That should be a two-step process. The first one is all encompasses getting the LinkedIn profile, and secondly, like Jack says, get out there and stand out and be a little bit more active and aggressive in a way that, of course, you're tactful and you're respectful of everyone. But similarly, I think people tend to pass the buck when they come on. Newcomers take a long time. And like I said, some take years. Now, I think it's not like back in the day when we first came on in the '07s and the '08s. Nobody wasn't sure exactly what the topics are going to be and how they were going to engage. I mean, everybody's probably looking, so what are you going to do? No, what are you going to do? And it was kind of it was kind of like that. And then finally, when people start to get right now, LinkedIn is established. It's established place for professionals to engage, not just a voyeur,
Yeah.
or not just to think that you're going to, have a halo around your profile, and the employer's going to say, "I picked you because your halo's the brightest." That's not how it works, and I think people
Yeah.
get that idea. And I think I really like what you both of you said, Jack, particularly. You're right. Is that now is the time to be proactive because you have a whole lot of people's attention at this particular point. And I think that's
You know what?
where the sweet spot is.
I'm curious what you guys think. I'm going through this myself right now to give kind of an analogy. So I want to get more active on Twitter. And I find myself not sure like when to step in, when to comment, what to put out there. So I can in a way empathize with job seekers where, you know, you're thinking, I hear what Mark and Jack and Daisy and other people say, but they're not sure what to do, what to say. And I think it's that inertia. And I think they're worried too. If let's say they're working, right, but they want another job, like is my boss going to see me? Is my nosy coworker going to notice and rat me out? So they have all these things going there. They also think, do I want to say something that's like dumb and that's not going to help my brand? So even though we say these things, I can really understand it's not easy for people to do that. It's kind of
Mhm.
scary at times because you're really putting yourself out there.
It is.
Well,
It
we
is,
have.
Jack. And sorry, I
No,
was
go
just
ahead,
going to
Daisy.
jump in. Yes, you're right, Jack. But two of the things that people can do when it comes to social media, but in terms of Twitter, because you brought that up, one, you can always lurk, create an account, and try adding people who could add value to your list. But lurk around a while and just see what they're posting. And then if you can make a comment, of course, do that. Or you can ask a question. or you can schedule a poll, say on Twitter. The other thing too is make you mentioned something about your their co-worker might see them on Twitter and report them to the boss. The thing about Twitter is that you can now schedule your posts. So you don't have to, like a lot of posting that I do on Twitter, I schedule them and kind of say when this one will go out. So it doesn't mean that a post that comes out at 11 o'clock does not necessarily tell the employer that you're actually on Twitter at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing that is great about what we do, all three of us do, between all of us, we have maybe possibly maybe even a couple of thousand articles between all of us because we all write. We've all written really good job advice, and people are comfortable engaging that in some kind of way and commenting there. So therefore, most people who engage Twitter or even LinkedIn or any social network, they don't have anything to leverage in the sense of, well, somebody can come to me as opposed to me going to someone. So there's another mindset that you can have. Say, hey, maybe I can just put some thoughts out there, even if I don't write an article using the 280 characters, and people can get a lot more out of it that way. And and other people will start coming to you if you're consistent in doing that. A lot of people are afraid to do that because they're afraid of what they're thinking, and they're afraid of what other people are afraid of
Yeah.
them thinking. So I think, yeah, I can empathize with that aspect of it, but I can also understand too where we're coming from in the sense that we're always used to initiating the discussion many times. And Jack,
Mhm.
you've been on Twitter long enough where I've included you. I've dragged you into some discussions.
Yeah.
You didn't always bite, but
Yeah,
I
because
would
you know what it
drag
is.
you
I,
because
I
you're
was, and I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty, like on Twitter, of pretty much just putting out content, which is either my articles or job orders that I'm working on, and that's it, and not really engaging. And that's really what I was referring to, like to jump into the pool and engage more. But then also I
yeah,
find out
so
I
you
don't have
got
enough
this
time,
right.
like a lot of time to do it. So then I'm like, I do a half bleeped kind of way of doing things because I'll start and then I gotta do something else because I'm like, wait, I gotta feel this call from a client, and then before it's 2 hours go by. I'm like, oh, all right, forget it. It
Yeah.
really does take a commitment, I guess, for anybody, for job seekers or whoever, you know where you can leverage social media. But I like what what, Daisy, to go back to what you said, this is really interesting. I don't know if anyone gives this advice, and I'm thinking this through as I'm talking. If you schedule it, I wonder if the fear factor goes down. So let's say you're a job seeker and you want to put out content and do things. When you're actually doing it and writing it, I'm sure people get a little nervous, they get, anxious, what have you. But if they schedule it before they put something out, would that be different? Because now it's just, going to be automatic. So they already did it and it goes automatic. So you don't have that. Now I'm literally sitting in front of the computer. I'm going to type out something and I'm nervous about typing it out. So it's almost the decision's made for you.
Yeah,
Does that
it
make
gives
sense?
you time. Yeah, it gives you some time because even if you have written the post and you have
Yeah.
scheduled it, you can always go back. If you feel like, oh, well, I don't
Right.
want to comment on this again, you can go back and you can delete. And it does, for me personally, it helps me with my time management because it doesn't mean I have to be there at a particular time to
Right.
send something out. When I have some free 15 minutes or so, I go in and I decide, okay, I'm going to send out a couple of tweets, and then that's it, and I leave it like that. So yes, the anxiety probably would go down for the job seeker because they have done it and it's out of the way, and then they can move on to something else, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes
I
sense.
think one of the things that people had mentioned here in the comment is the self doubt is the number one reason I don't post, and I get that. I remember when I first started on Twitter, particularly. It was 2008. It was back in the early days, and it wasn't hard to get a lot of attention. So I think my first three people, one of the first three people I followed was Oprah, of course, just like everybody else did back then.
Mm-hmm.
And and but what broke a little bit for me to engage a little bit more was, there was a whole bunch of people who were writers and podcasters, and this guy actually followed me because I followed him, and he says, "Wow, this guy, he has only three followers. Oprah's one of them. So why is he following me?" So it was kind of funny for a while, but believe it or not, I became friends with that guy, and we connect on all social networks since that time. So all that to say is that, yeah, I can understand the self-doubt, but at some point you've got to break the ice and think of ways to kind of start discussion. There's somebody who has a question. Shirley, thank you very much for giving us a question here. It's going to take us a little bit off, but I think it's a good question. It says, is it advice for someone who is over 65, who is excellent C-suite experience, find a job? And it says, Jack, are you taking on new clients? So I don't know if she meant that you're taking on
Right.
new recruiter clients,
Yeah.
or if you're taking on, career coaching clients. I think you basically work with,
Yeah.
you work with both in different kind of ways. But I think all in all, yeah, there's that concern. There are a lot of older workers who have a lot of C-suite experience, but
Yeah.
they end up out of a job at that age.
Well, so I guess surely the biggest question you have is like, are you too young to find something new, and that they're going to worry
Mm.
that you don't have enough experience to do. So, you know, I don't want to be naive. I think ageism is for real. Is
Mm-hmm.
there? It's pernicious. It's a problem. Um, I think a lot, in my opinion, of the ages and what I see as a recruiter isn't so much like, hey, so and so is old, and they're sucking on Werthers, and they have this, and they wear their slippers and that funny nightcap to work, and and
Mhm.
have these things. I think it's more about the compensation, where I could just talk from my own personal experience, is what I've seen in the last 10 plus years. It's interesting you talked about 2008, Mark, because it's really a lot of these trends I've noticed started after the financial crisis, where, let's take within the financial industry, they started moving jobs from Wall Street to all sorts of, first to New Jersey, to other places, to other countries. So then it's very easy for companies to say, hey, if you're late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you're going to be earning such and such. But instead of paying you that much money, hey, we're gonna just have that job in Florida, or in Salt Lake City, or in Budapest, or you name it. And without exaggeration, like, if you ever have time and you look at the career sites, oh my gosh, there's so many. Like, it used to be New York, New York, New York. Now it's like, you name a country, that's where it's going. So I think, surely, for a lot of it is not so much the ageism, but say, hey, how can we get someone cheaper and less expensive? And let's keep looking for that. But that being said, I would do this. When you go for interviews and you do things, you want to dispel the notion of somebody looking at you and labeling you as quote unquote old. You want to come in there, and show that you're up to date on everything. You're in the now. You have the experience. You have the background. Because if you come in really showing that you're smart, you're motivated, you have the energy, that could dispel any preconceived notions they have right out of the gate, and then they start looking at you very differently. So sometimes, the same way we were talking about, people get in their own head about posting and getting it out there. I think
Mhm.
that happens when you interview too. You get in your own head and you start thinking, well, this is what they're going to think of me. This is how they view me. Instead of saying, no, I'm going to put this out. This is who I'm going to be. I'm going to show I'm up to date. And I would even say this, and you guys might kind of roll your eyes at me, but I would even say this. You want to make a practice, like, see who you're meeting with, and depends on whether they're a millennial, a Gen X, what have you. You want to kind of make sure you have cultural references, musical references, lingo, so that when you speak, it shows that you're taking an effort. It's to say, hey, I know we have five or whatever, 4 or 5 generations in the workplace. But I'm not going to be, just because I've been doing it so long, I have all the answers. I'm going to look to you. I could bring to you my experience and help mentor and help people. But at the same time, I could learn from you. I could learn from you, Gen Z, because you guys are fantastic when it comes to the internet and a lot of things. Same things with millennials. So sure, I would put aside, I know it's easy for me to say, I know it's easy for me to say, but I would say you separate it. And if you come across as dynamic, motivated, all the stuff, you could dispel it. And I'd be glad to talk to you offline too. So feel free if you want to contact me. I do specialize in compliance and legal and risk, so I don't know your specialty. So I'm not sure specifically I can help you that, but I'd be glad to kind of talk more in detail.
Yeah, look for Jack's book. We meet. I mean, not book, but yeah, look for his book, but also look for his Facebook group.
Yeah.
We meet up. I believe
Mhm.
this. What is this? A
Yeah.
free Facebook group, and they have I think, over 1,000 members
Yeah.
there. So, and there's a lot of interaction, and we could talk ad nauseum. Or you could hire Daisy, who's a career coach, but I don't know if she's in
There you go.
Canada
That's
or not. But I
Yes.
think that's a concern in North America largely too, right? Ageism is really is prevalent in Canada as is in the United States.
Yes. Could I add just a little bit on that for Shirley? Just to say,
Mhm.
Shirley, the first thing you should be thinking of is what value do I have to offer this employer? Take
Mhm.
it from that perspective rather than thinking in terms of how old you are. That's one. And then remember, it's going to be a conversation. How can you
Mhm.
convince them that you are the right person for for that role? Yes, as Jack says, ageism is an issue, but you don't have to buy into that. You can focus on what is it that I do, what is it that I've done well. And you can
Mhm.
actually ask the question, if you're looking for somebody, if you're looking for your company to remain at the same level, then probably I'm not the right person. But if you're looking to grow, then here is someone who will help you do that. So yes, it's a reality, but don't buy into that old ageism type of a conversation. And just make sure, as Jack says again, make sure that you're keeping up to date with technology. Engage in some micro credentialing and all of that to let them see that you're enthusiastic, you're ready to learn, and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, love
That's really
the good
good points.
advice, and yeah, they were really good points.
Let me
One
ask you
thing
this,
I
Dave.
do. Go
Oh, I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Jack.
So I want, because brings a really interesting theme that I've really haven't thought about much. But I wonder how much of this is that people get into their own heads and start questioning themselves and doubting themselves and looking at things that other people don't look at. Like, you ever have something like, maybe you have a pimple on your nose, and all you can think about, oh my God, I got a pimple on my nose. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then no one notices. No one cares. No one notices. But you're driving yourself crazy because you think the whole world sees that and they're like laughing at you, but no one cares. And I wonder, it's the same thing, whether it's posting on LinkedIn, whether it's, going for an interview, that you're thinking about all your flaws. Meanwhile, they're not thinking that at all. They're not, right?
No, Jack, I have to jump in here because in when it comes to ageism,
Right.
I don't think that's it at all. Yes,
Mhm.
some people may have it in their heads, but the reality is that recruiters, hiring managers, they too have it in
Mhm.
their heads. And it could be from the fact that, well, we won't be able to pay you the salary you're accustomed to. The onus is on that person. Say Shirley, for example, maybe probably she used to earn a whole lot of money. She can say, listen, I'm at this stage in my career where money is not the main issue. It's how can I help you move ahead? Or I want to continue using the skills I have developed all over these years. So I am okay with coming in at a salary that's less than what I was accustomed to getting. So it's not always in their head. Sometimes it is, but it's not always in their heads. It's a reality that some of us just believe that the moment you're over a certain age, then you're done, and that's not true.
So what you're saying,
Yeah.
it makes sense, is to be prepared with, um, I don't want to say your pitch, but let's say for the sake of this conversation now, your pitch about knowing that this is things that they're going to ask or be concerned about, so you could address those right away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing, and I think one of the things that people underestimate, and they may hate to do this, but I think independent contracting might be a way to get into a company more these days
Uh-huh.
than, let's say, just going through the application process. Because one, it's going to be more contingent on how well you develop relationships than your application or your resume even. If you're
Mhm.
showing experience and showing how functional that is for that particular company, that the value or it overreaches the fact that you won't be covered by insurance, let's say, then you can find a way to make some of that work. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be more of the future now, and might be more now than anything else, because there are people I know that actually work their 9 to 5. The job that they really want is in the independent contractor as a 1099 employee, not particularly as somebody that you're actually getting hired by. And then, of course, there are other people who have gotten hired permanently through their independent contract work, because then it makes more sense to hire somebody who knows the environment and can be off and running from day one. So that saves the company a lot of money from the onboarding process that they usually do with somebody that actually is a brand new hire that comes from the outside, that doesn't know as many people, as opposed to the contractor who knows basically everybody on the team and all the other people on the adjacent teams internally. Would make more sense of a hire. I do want to give some shout outs here, people who are joining us. Thank you guys for joining us. Shirley, who was our first, she's from Philadelphia. Rio is from Hillbilly, California. Is there such a thing? I guess so. Elizabeth is joining us, and she joins us mostly every week. Thank you very much. And Holly Harris, she says that self doubt is a big hindrance. I definitely agree with that for sure. The reason why people have a hard time posting, just to talk about a little bit what we were talking about earlier. Um, Rio says is that, and this is really good. She says, I get the same bad looks from trying to move from bank to fintech jobs. And I think actually, even as a 1099 employer, if you have found the sore spot of the employer, you know, what industry you will come from. Won't matter as much as the problem that you're going to be able to solve. So it makes that aspect of your transferable skills are on fleek, so to speak. They become very, because that's the problem that you solve. You're focused on the problem. The downside to independent contractors, as soon as that job is over, you are done, or they will hire you or extend you in some kind of way, which
Yeah.
could be more of a challenge. Would any of you like to
Yeah.
comment
Yeah.
on
Can I
the
just
chat?
point to for Rio about the going to fintech? I mean, this is more of a specific thing as opposed to, a general
Right.
career thing.
Uh-huh.
It's there's what I've seen with the fintech companies, and this is kind of apropos of talking about a little bit of the ageism we talked earlier.
Hmm.
There's definitely a trend, in my opinion, what I've seen is to look to hire young, smart people. And it's because they pay them less. And then they have this theory, whether right or wrong, maybe they're right, is that, hey, if we find, really smart people from great schools, we'll just throw them, into the pool and they'll figure out how to swim and they'll make it happen. And if you get somebody who's been working at Citigroup or JP Morgan or one of these big banks for 20 years, they're institutionalized in that they just know the big banks and they don't know how to act quickly and they don't know how to juggle a whole lot of things. So there's definitely, in my opinion, what I'm seeing, this kind of this bias that, hey, if you've worked at a big bank and now you want to, pivot and go to, a fast growing fintech, I don't know. So, and this kind of mirrors what we were talking about. So you have to play the game. And as kind of Daisy was saying, you want to come in kind of knowing that they may have a preconceived notion about who you are because you're maybe working at JP Morgan for 20 years and think, hey, how can this guy make a U-turn and now be in a fast-growing fintech? So you have to really support your case. And Mark kind of alluded to that too. So you have to be able to say, hey, and listen, here's why I can do it. I've, done X, Y, Z, and so on, and give all the information. So they're like, oh, okay, all right, this makes sense, because I think if you
Hmm.
go in and just tout what you've done at the big bank, they're gonna feel, nah, you don't
Mm-hmm.
get it. So you got to kind of really learn and understand what's important to them, and then the same way, whether it's aging, I guess for the same, if it's almost different themes, different types of things, but it's the same kind of thing where you have
Hmm.
to acknowledge, hey, they're going to kind of look at you one way, and your job
Mm-hmm.
is, as Daisy was saying, is to kind of say, wait, no, here's why I'm awesome, here's why I'm good, here's why you should look at
Yes,
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Daisy,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing about the people who are plagued by self-doubt. It just happened that this week one of my posts on Twitter and LinkedIn was all about confidence and doubt. Confidence is contagious, but so is doubt. So if you try to focus on, just think of you and just realize that you have value. You are worth it. You are worthy. So think in terms of the have those, change your mindset to think that I have skills that an employer will need, and I'm confident. I'm confident about what I can do, what I can bring to the table. And so the more you do that, the more you're cognizant of your worth, the less doubt you will feel, in moving forward. So yes, doubt is a reality, but like I said, it's contagious as much as confidence is.
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of, to me, a lot of it is that you can't bring a diamond and sell it at a Bentley parking lot necessarily, because you both have value. But if they're mostly Bentley outside, then people who are willing to buy are looking to buy the Bentley at the time, not particularly a diamond. And I think there's a lot to say about that, but I think the aspect is that you have to see yourself for who you are, but just find the parts that match the best. And sometimes when you change industries, if you don't shrink your focus, and if you're
Mhm.
looking broad, you're going to drown. You won't tread water. Now, so if you're coming from the banking industry, and the fintech is a very fast moving industry, so one of the things that definitely is going to be looked at, and especially when there's age that's a factor, they want to know that you can move as fast as time. That means that they don't have time to train you on a lot of technology,
Mhm.
to Jack's point, and they don't have time to train you on the latest software, to So's point. Now, if you wrote the software for the bank, you've got a case then.
Mhm.
If you were the author of that software that they're using, then you're an expert in that software. You may not have the experience in fintech, but doggone, you wrote the software that they're using. And you got to kind of think like that. And there's a lot of moving parts. And this is such a great discussion for a lot of ways, because ageism is something that's constantly a concern. It is, if you know how to present yourself, it's great. Then you have an advantage over your competition, as we talked about how to job search in the competition. But if you don't have the matching parts, if you have not found that small little thing that you offer is very valuable, and we know that diamonds are very small, but they're very valuable. If you don't know how to make yourself fit, then it's going to be hard for you to be seen as somebody that they want to hire. But you know, I think that's different, because I know our friend Lisa Rangel will come up here and say basically the same thing that Daisy says, is that, a lot of his presentation, you can be taught how to present yourself in a way that doesn't make yourself, easy, easy access to biased. But I think all in all that people have to have that focus that, most people don't want to. They just say, I have all this experience here, but no, it doesn't translate over to the next field if you're looking to translate,
Yeah.
if you're looking to transfer your skills. Jack, did you have anything else before we move
Now,
on? Or
the only thing is I want
Daisy?
to echo, yeah, I want to echo what Daisy was saying. I think one of the best skills to have, and if you don't have it, to kind of hone it and learn it, is to work on your mindset, because that watching and going through the whole interview process with people for years, going on 25 years, is it makes a difference if you can go in there and you feel confident about yourself, not a phony confident, but really feel comfortable. And you can be confident and still not have all the attributes needed for the job, but just confidence in yourself that you can learn the things you don't know and that you could work with the people there. That sells, that works.
Mhm.
I would say that's one of the best things to have if you're looking for a job advancing your career, to really work
Hmm.
on that, to have that positive mindset. Because as you said, Daisy, people pick up on it. Like if you're in an interview and you come across as confident, but not cocky and not arrogant, but just confident in
Mhm.
yourself and what you can do and your abilities. And also, and being confident, you could also say, I'm not good at this and I'm not good at that. I'm not good at the other thing, but I can learn it and I can get up to speed. It rubs off on people and they like that. People want to be around folks who are confident, who feel good about themselves, who are positive, who are motivated. On the other side, if you interview, you look for a job, you're looking to advance your career, and you come across as a sad sack, and you come across as, oh, woe is me. It's just
Mhm.
it's just like people like back up. I don't want to, because I don't want that rubbing off on me. I don't
Yeah.
need
Hmm.
that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the underrated things that we don't talk enough about, Daisy. Where that whole just working on that mindset and
Yeah.
how you come across and how you could kind of manifest your own destiny to make things happen. It sounds woo woo kind of stuff, and that's why maybe people don't talk about it. But I could say without a doubt, over the years, I've noticed that people who have that, and I don't want to say self confidence because I don't know the right term to use, but it's more of I think mindset is a better word. The way you look at the world, the way you react to things makes
Hmm.
all the difference between success and failure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good deal. So let's move on. Let's Daisy, unless you have something else to add, we're
No,
going to
no,
move
I'm
on
good.
to. Okay, okay, yeah, I think we covered that well. Thank both of you for knocking that out of the park for sure. Here's something
Well,
that we
we thank the
are.
people who asked the question. We thank Shirley for
That's
asking
right.
that question.
That's right, and yes, thank you all for enhancing that discussion. The other part, something that is in the back of everybody's mind, no matter what move you're making, is how the vaccine discloses themselves. Now, USA Today and New York Times have both written articles recently about how vaccines are factoring in. There's a story about a man who actually was in the C-suite that mentioned his vaccine stand and why he got a vaccine, and somehow through different events he was fired from his job. And then there's the other part where the New York Times article talks about a lot of situations where a vaccine is playing a part of the hiring process in some kind of way. So as we look at it, in some kind of way, is the vaccine status hindering, or maybe we can put it hindering or helping hiring these days? And boy, we can probably get into that for another hour or so, but we're going to try to keep it limited. Daisy, why don't you go ahead and give your perspective? You're in Canada, so
Yes.
we would love to hear how those views, maybe it's not as polarizing it is in the United States, but you can add some insight to how does that look, or what is it looking like in Canada?
Right. Well, first of all, it's not as polarizing, but it is. We have our anti-vaxxers and our vaxxers here as well, and it's really what I refer to as a hot potato issue,
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
you're not sure how to frame the conversation. But what I will say is that regardless of where you are, whether it's here in Canada or in the US, the career trajectories of people will be impacted based on their status, whether so if they're vaccinated, they're going to be impacted, and if they're not. And I don't want to bear down on, look down on anybody who doesn't want to be vaccinated, or want to be vaccinated. I'm not going to say that's not the conversation I want to hold, because people will have their opinions. But what I want to say is, people should determine, if they're so strong, if they feel so strongly about being vaccinated or not, then look for employers who might who might
Hmm.
be, might be flexible on that, or it could be a situation where it's kind of a, don't ask, don't tell
Hmm.
situation. But here in Canada, as a matter of fact, just this morning, our premier for Ontario, he was about to announce some kind of a passport um, document or something that we people who are vaccinated should be, I guess, carrying around so that employers and other people, businesses would know for sure that yes, we have been vaccinated. So it's really a very delicate topic, but it's one that has to be had because you don't want to you don't want to miss out on an opportunity, a job opportunity, just because you're not vaccinated. And we need to look back on history as well because vaccinations have helped to eradicate certain diseases. We know that. And I remember my son was born in the States when I worked there briefly a few years ago. Well, several years ago actually. And I remember when he was ready for school, we had to provide his vaccination record, which I didn't have at the time. I had left it in New
Mm.
York, but he could not go to school without that. So it's a delicate topic. But if we, like I said, it's gonna impact job seekers' career trajectory. Whether it might prevent them from getting a good opportunity, or it might just mean that they might have to seek out employers who, it might not matter whether or not they're vaccinated. We don't want to get into the issue of me. It's between me and us. We have to look at it as a collective, really. What's important for people generally, as opposed to just me.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's what we are hearing, and that's really the center of the discussion. What is best for me, as opposed to what is best collectively? I
Hmm.
don't know how we'll all get there. Jack, your
Yeah, I like to
thoughts?
pick. Yeah, I like to pick up where you mentioned Daisy about it. It drives me crazy how we just have to politicize everything, and we just can't, as humans, just talk things through. So it becomes us versus them. So, for example, I'm vax, so my kids, my wife, and so on. But I don't hate on people who aren't. And you know, in this country, I feel uncomfortable when you start saying you have to show your documents to go places because that's like,
Hmm.
and I don't mean to kind of go on a tangent, but it just feels like it's going towards more totalitarian kind of thing where you could have mayors and governors and politicians say, hey, before you go into a restaurant, you have to show,
Hmm.
literally you have to show your paper or you have to put it on, show your phone. I
Hmm.
get that a lot of people are worried and concerned. Hey, I don't want to be next to someone who's not vaccinated because I can get it. But we gotta. It just, to me, it's frightening if you create different classes of people and you divide people and you pit people against each other. That never ends well. That's not a good recipe. For moving forward, whether it's Canada, the U.S., or any country. So that part. And then give you an example, like with Delta Airlines. So what they did is they said, "Hey, we're going to charge people who aren't vaccinated an extra $200 a month." And at first, and as you imagine, if someone's vaccinated, go, "Hey, yeah, sure." But then you think about it. Well, then what's going to stop? It's like a slippery slope. The companies say, "Wait a minute." Mark drinks, and I don't think he drinks, but whatever. Just say for the sake of
Hmm.
conversation, Mark drinks and does, and Jack does recreational drugs, and Jane eats lots of junk food, and Bob doesn't work out at all. So when does that stop? Where you could start
Hmm.
saying, well, you know what, you're going to have to pay more money now in insurance because you eat a lot of junk food, or you drink, or you do whatever. So it's a little frightening. So
Hmm.
sometimes with the best intentions, you could do things that create a lot of animosity. Um, and it's rough for companies because if, let's say, the three of us are on the board of directors of a company, right, and we don't enforce a vaccine, like a vaccine or a mask mandate, someone comes in there and gets sick and gets someone else sick, and someone, God forbid, dies, we're all liable. So it's a really tough situation. and
Hmm.
as much as I'm a big talker and being all libertarian and stuff, if I was, the president of a company, I would probably have to, say, hey, you all have to get vaccinated because I don't want anyone dying on my watch,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll get sued. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a really, really weird, tough thing. And I would say, I think in part, one of the reasons why we just saw Google today moving back to January, the return to work to January 2022. It's weird to say. And then Amazon's doing the same thing. Apple's doing the same thing, I believe, because they're kind of concerned. How are we going to
Mm-hmm.
get everybody in the office without, and if we let the people who aren't vaccinated, the people who are vaccinated get freaked out, and it's just going to be a mess. So I think
Mm-hmm.
they're pushing the can, they're kicking the can down the
Yeah, kicking
road
the can
to see
down the
what'll
road.
happen. So it does have so many different repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in our society, we just jump. It has to be like, this way or that way. And we can't just say,
Yes.
wait. Let's all just
Yeah.
cool down. Let's all think, what could happen if we go down this path? How bad would it be? You know what I mean? What if, and just not, and then stop yelling at each other and just listen and hear, because it could be
Mm-hmm.
someone's not getting vaccinated because they have a really good reason. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, I was a little nervous for myself and my son and daughter because we have really bad allergies. And I don't remember, but I remember my parents telling me there was one vaccine I couldn't take because I was so allergic. So I was a little worried, but I went to my doctor and the kids went to their doctors and we talked through the allergies and they said, hey, you know what? We feel safe that you do. We do. There might be other people who don't have that comfort level.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know someone else's journey in life and what goes on. And it could be not they're being jerks, but they're really worried about whatever.
Yeah.
So, and if we had calm, rational conversations, I think it'd be better, So
Yeah, and that's really the hope for it all, is that we can conversate that and maybe accept each other's decisions. But unfortunately, one person's decision affects another person's decision. So it's not as easy
it's
said
not
than
easy.
done that we should.
No.
It isn't. We haven't gotten to the part yet where there will be employers that will say that you don't really need to be vaccinated, but we want you to come in office and you are going to sit less than 6 feet apart from
Yeah.
someone that works with you. Then that becomes, then we get into a whole nother territory.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the different discussions, the way people are doing it, especially working from home, looking like this, these variants are taking different lives
You know
of
what, Mark?
their
I don't
own,
mean to
to the
interrupt.
point.
This might be a whole game, because I was thinking about it this morning, right? When I think, I'm losing track of all these companies. I think it was Google said, hey, now we're moving it to, January, 2022. And I'm thinking, I wonder, is this going to be really just remote work moving forward because of everything you're saying? Because we're talking about the Delta variant now, right? But what about, then you hear about the Lambda, what about something else?
Mm-hmm.
So it might be that if this keeps happening, who's going to want to go back to the office even?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to want to go on public transit? So I wonder, is this kind of, we're going to enter a whole new world where it will be pretty much remote work?
Well,
Well,
you know
I
what?
just
We
got a
have
reference
already
point. Go
entered.
ahead.
We have already entered that world of remote work, because
Yeah.
if prior to the pandemic, most companies didn't realize that a lot could be accomplished when their employees are not physically in that brick and mortar office.
Yeah.
So it's remote work is not going to go away, but and in terms of, for purposes of the discussion around the vaccine, that's probably why certain companies are delaying
Yeah.
the full, having the full complement of staff back together, and that's where the hybrid work arrangement, workplace might come in pretty handy, with people coming in. I was speaking with a client the other day, and she was looking for a job that was part hybrid, part 2 days going into the office and 3 days working from home. So those are options that people are looking at as well.
You know
Yeah.
what? I don't know if you guys know that this was really blew my mind. I thought, I just assumed like all nurses were vaccinated. I just assumed all, like, I don't know why. I just thought, they would be like all nurses were vaccinated. I thought all like what we at the beginning of the pandemic called essential workers, all the food delivery people and so on. I thought they were all vaccinated. And then as I was writing some different articles, I'm doing research, like, they're not.
No, no.
No,
So what do you
nope,
guys
No.
think
nope.
about that? I mean, that's I don't
Well,
know how to process that really.
there are hospitals that are starting to require
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
effect, but some of them are taking a very small steps in how they're requiring it. Some of them are saying that because of the Pfizer, say, hey, here's another vaccine that you could possibly take. And by this date, if you don't, instead of banning both, they said then you have to be tested or
Yes.
twice a month or twice a month. So hospitals are taking very small steps, even in there. But perspective, I think think of. I want you to think of this during the time of HIV in the late 80s and early 90s. A lot of people don't know that the way that nurses and doctors went into service and help HIV affected folks, they wore spacesuits. They wore spacesuits, not masks,
Mhm.
spacesuits, not just
Mm.
face shields. They wore spacesuits. And at that particular time, there were also, I mean, there were people who said you should wear a mask when, blah, blah, blah. To me, a lot of it is not about the freedom in particularly, but it has been shown that, if there's something that people are afraid of, that they're going to take the measures that they need to. And I think
Yes.
a lot of people aren't fearing what or don't get the fear unless they know someone that's been affected or that they've been the person that's been affected. Then that tune changes. And I think there's plenty of examples we can go through of people who once said that you shouldn't, and they end up saying they should get vaccinated based on how people are affected. And I think very much now I'm starting to really believe people are not going to take a stand until that they either never known anybody not to get affected. They'll take one
Mm-hmm.
stand if they were one side, or that they've seen people get affected. And well, they'll start to take the other side. It's almost like the proof has to be in the pudding, and that the tests and things that the government have been doing and been running, showing that hospital beds are filled with unvaccinated folks for the most
Mm-hmm.
part, with a few that have been vaccinated. And I
Yeah.
think that discussion continues to evolve as time goes on, but the way that it's affecting employers is going to depend upon how people in decision making positions are affected. Once they've seen somebody, believe me, the company policies hand down is going to be based on what they've seen because they know that to be true. That
Yes.
seems to be the pattern that is following. So I think it's more either if people have bought into whether it's become real or that's unreal. If you're a leader, that's the way that the company is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of tough. I think part of the question though we're asking is as well, is disclosure hindering your job search? Because for a lot of companies, if you want to be hired by your favorite company, you're not willing to be vaccinated. What kind of fight do you have? Because the company policy is going to be company policy, and you're nobody until you're actually in there somewhat. And even then, we can debate whether what your status is and your significance is or not. Jack, did you want to have add any more to this
Now, the
discussion?
only thing is, I wonder what'll happen to the more I'm listening to you guys, I'm really feeling that these companies, a lot of companies, interesting enough, Wall Street not so much. Wall Street want everyone getting back, so they're kind of a
Right,
little bit, I think, of the anomaly in
right.
what companies are doing. But I think,
Hmm.
yeah, the more we talk about it, I think that's you're going to see, particularly tech companies, others pushing back to January because these are such thorny issues
Yep.
that it's just easier to say, you know what, we'll just kick it down the road, and maybe we'll have hybrid, as Daisy said, and maybe we'll kind of work it out who's going to be in. So maybe the vaxxed aren't with the vaxxed, and we'll try to keep them separate to kind of keep
Hmm.
harmony. and
Yeah.
hoping by January, then we have some answers and we can move on with more normalcy. See, but then the thing is, throw it out there. What happens if then they start saying you got to go get a booster and then another booster, and that
Mm-hmm.
throws another curveball? Then after a while, do people say, "Wait a minute," and then we're paying for it too? It's like, wait a minute, is that do we really need that? And then do we go
Well,
into the same thing?
the disparity would be is how many people are in the hospital who've gotten the
Mm.
booster versus those who were just vaccinated for the first round of vaccinations. I mean, really, it's the I guess showing studies and having proof and having all these different study groups are not going to be enough because of the lack of trust the government or people have of the government, which I could understand that. But then again, who's in the hospital, who's not in the hospital, were they vaccinated the first time, weren't they vaccinated all,
Yeah,
or
but
did they
it
get vaccinated
changes. You
plus
have a
the
lot. You have
booster?
people who now, when I
And
took
it's
the
going,
vaccine, I thought for
and that's
sure the way I
and I
understood it,
think
I'm not, I'm cool. But it turns out,
we're going to
no,
have to
you're
be
not.
tolerant. Yeah, we're
So
going to have to
it's
be
not so
tolerant.
simple either. That's a problem
Right. We're
too.
going to have to
It's not
be
so
we're going
simple.
to have to be tolerant of the people who
Yeah.
believe one way or
Yep.
another, and because there's such a significant part of the conversation, and we
Mm-hmm.
can't deny whether you're are pro or against. You're significant in the way you feel about the conversation. You also have to be guarded in some kind of way. Even again, if the proof is in the pudding, how much more do people need to see? It remains to be seen at this particular point. We are coming to the top of the hour.
Wow,
That
This
that
was
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 very
quick.
great
fast.
discussion.
That was quick.
That's how it is.
That
That's how
was,
it is. So, yeah. So, Daisy,
yeah.
your concerns about having enough to discuss, I think we made you a believer now. That's how we roll
There's
here.
so much out there now to talk. We could
Yes, there
talk for
is.
hours.
I was just about to mention that I have a friend who works in the hospital. She's not a
Yes.
nurse. She works on the corporate
Yeah.
side. But this
Mhm.
morning we were having a conversation, and she said she was just about sending in something, I think, to prove that she has been vaccinated. Because come October, if they don't have that, then she wouldn't have a job. So it's a whole big mess, but I think together the conversation and the tolerance, as Mark was saying, will have to jump in, and we just think about each
Yeah.
other and do what we think is right.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think anybody who has a perspective is insignificant in the conversation because I think
Not at all.
everything kind of counts, and that's the way we need to kind of treat each other. I actually like seeing on my timeline people, having reasonable people, I should say,
Yes.
on my timeline to come present why they would or they wouldn't get vaccinated. I do think there have been messages that have been sent, like especially from Canada earlier this summer. They're saying, "Well, we're not going to let that many people cross the border if you haven't been vaccinated." So I think that does kind of speak loudly to the way that Canada feels. The United States,
Oh,
it's become clear of how some of our leaders think and the policies they put forward. But I think between the rest of us, I think we just need to be open to being vigilant and be ready to kind of understand each other's perspectives so we can move on and we can all be safe. Jack, did you have any last
yeah.
words?
This is a little off topic, sort of. I always
Okay.
assumed Canada was just like the U.S. in that you had, First Amendment rights and things like that. But you don't, right? You don't have the same. Do you have the
Um,
same kind of rights? Like you could, like here in the U.S., you could say whatever you want. You have, freedom of speech. Is that built into your constitution, or not really?
well, it is. It's
Yeah. Okay.
it's our, oh boy, I'm so ashamed I'm not remembering. But we do have rights as framed into the Constitution, that we do pay attention. We do pay attention to. So yes, we have freedoms, of
Right.
course, but also we tend to be, as a whole, more tolerant of people and their ideas, and of course you're going to have outliers. but by and large, we do have
Yeah.
our rights written into the our to, into
Yeah.
our
Yeah,
constitution.
and the reason I ask because I would see like we all see videos online and seeing where you would see Canadian police officers or army, I don't know what they are, when let's say their protest is like really heavy-handedly cracking down on it, and
Mhm.
then it seemed that they were saying, well, when we had freedom of assembly and speech where it's not as clear cut, so they're able to say, nope, you can't talk about it. Phew, you gotta, they arrest you or whatever. Just say, just leave.
Yeah, but we do have freedom of speech,
Mm.
there are limitations.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, and nobody we have our, like I said, the Canadian Bill of Rights, which is written
Yeah.
into the Constitution. But there is obviously, if you're going to be hurting someone, or you're going to be saying things about people that's not true, then you're going to end up in in trouble. Yes, but it's not as what would I say, cantankerous, if pardon
Yeah. It's a
that
little
word,
different, right? You have
is
it, but not the same. Yeah.
as it is,
Yeah.
in the US. But again,
Mhm.
people are people, and we have people who are, extremists, and then we have others who are, and the majority really, who are tolerant and will engage in conversations, and hopefully we get better at it moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What a show!
I think
You,
we're
you
gonna.
get you get
Yeah,
a history lesson on Canada. You get discussions about vaccines, career advice,
Yes.
yeah.
mindset advice,
You
and
you
before
get
the show,
you get
Mark and I would
everything.
talk about
But
Afghanistan. So that,
yeah,
boy,
but the vaccine is part of is how you know it's going to affect people in their job search, and they're going to have to make key
yeah,
decisions if it's something a little bit different than what people had anticipated. So their favorite company again might be that they require vaccinations, and they've been avoiding vaccinations the whole time for whatever their beliefs are, and that is going to be a concern, and they have to be ready to navigate that. And the more information we kind of put out there, the better the people will be ready to job search.
But you know
We
what?
have
That could be the determining factor as well. Say,
it
well,
might
here I am,
be,
I'm vaccinated. Oh, here's a job.
yeah,
or them choosing between somebody who's
yeah.
vaccinated and somebody who's not
Yes.
vaccinated.
And you can
Yes.
Who's
see that
just
happening
who
because
you
it's
know
a
so,
less risky decision by a hiring manager.
who's
Yeah,
to
for
say that
sure.
the person who is hired is unvaccinated, and the
Yeah.
vaccinated person may say, wait a second, that might be discrimination.
That's
Yes.
So that
true. I haven't heard it yet, but if have you seen Daisy? I know we had to, we kind of ended, but have you seen candidates like that you have that asked like the hire manager, "Hey, are you vaccinated?" I don't think I've even asked anybody about that. That's an interesting question.
That's an interesting question, but I was reading an
Huh.
article the other day, and the advice was, it's okay. You can ask
Yeah.
the interviewer,
Yeah.
not so much if they have been vaccinated, but if vaccination is a concern
Yeah.
to the employer. So
I
I
it's
wonder
gonna
that's
imagine
happen.
that you have to ask. I imagine you would have to ask in a very neutral way.
Yes.
like,
You cannot ask as sort of a leading to, why aren't you
so how
vaccinated?
do you feel about
Yeah. So
So
needles?
what are your thoughts on?
yeah.
What are your
Oh,
thoughts about needles?
that might be, and that might be a biased question. Or what are your
That
Interesting.
thoughts
too.
on?
Yes.
So that can get into some
Interesting.
territory that people really didn't. I I think it's okay to ask, is my opinion, but it just needs leave it to a yes or no. What
Yeah.
does the company feel, rather
Yeah.
than asking how the person may feel, because then you're asking that person's bias to jump in on how they
Hmm.
feel, and that may determine your hiring situation. So
Yes.
I think that needs to be treated very, very, very carefully.
It's
Plus,
so
the
But
company itself, the company
it's so
could probably put that in their job posting to say,
yeah.
we we honor people, well, not
Yeah,
honor,
but
but however they
you know,
phrase it, just say that, if you're vaccinated, then,
it's so wild. Daisy, it's so wild because, like, as much as I was saying before, how I'm not comfortable with, hey, showing your papers and all that. Same time, I don't think I would be comfortable if, let's say, I got a job and I'm sitting in front of somebody who's not vaccinated. They're breathing on me all day. I'm like, I don't want that either. You know what I
Yes,
mean? So
yes.
Right,
it's
but
this is where it's so
supposedly,
wild. I admit
but
it.
I
I don't
think,
want that person breathing on me all day. I don't like if we're doing it all day, 8 hours a day.
I think if
but
you
for
go
the
back,
job
if you
seeker,
start going
Yeah.
back into the office now, then they have to start putting up cubicles again.
Uh, oh my gosh.
but the interesting thing is that if you're a job seeker, if you're concerned, I would definitely would take a look at the company that is hiring and kind
Yeah.
of go through the YouTube and podcast
Yeah.
lines to see if they talk about it ad nauseum,
Yeah.
to
Yes.
see how they really feel about it and really be
Yeah.
informed and ask a question that's according, because I saw on my timeline a few months ago someone in a C-suite write this whole post about how they once thought that being unvaccination vaccinated was okay, but as it turned out, they had several relatives that were killed by
Mm,
the non-compliance in their view. I'll leave it there, and therefore that changed their view. This person was in a C-suite of their company. If somebody in the C-suite sees that, you better believe that they have some very personal feelings about
Yeah.
vaccination, whether you should or shouldn't. So that might be good research to inform you. We've got to run. Daisy,
we could
thank you
have gone
very
on and
much.
on.
Thank you very much for
Hey,
joining
it's a
us
pleasure
here
meeting you.
on Job
Well,
Seeker
thank you for
Nation.
having me, and it's great to meet
Yeah.
you,
Yes,
Jack.
and
That's
you
my
didn't know that you're
pleasure.
going to be involved in such a robust discussion
Yeah.
on
I
both
know.
ends of that. That's
Not
what
at
we
all,
do
but
here at Job
it's
Seeker Nation. Jack Kelly, thank you very much. And
Thanks.
always co hosting with you has been great.
Yeah.
Coming on a year now that we've been
Oh my
doing
God,
this
really?
show.
is that
And yeah,
right?
Crazy.
Wow.
and we're
Oh my
probably
God.
the only regular show that appears in
Wow.
people's timelines as far as job
That's
search
wild.
information like we do. So thank you very much, and you all
Excellent.
have a great week.
Thanks.
Join
Take
us on
care.
You
Friday
too.
show.
Thanks. Take
All
Bye
care.
right,
bye.
have a
Good.
good
Bye
one.
bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.